Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Cigars and Everything Else podcast, episode 9. And in this episode, we had some technical difficulties. The platform we use to stream our podcast ran into some issues and it cut out on us. We didn't get half the audio from it, so we ended up being lucky enough. We stream on Instagram Live when we record the show. We were able to download that and also use that for this week's episode. So the quality may sound a little bit off. Forgive us. It'll be back to normal next week. That being said, we had some issues with Instagram also. That actually picked up in the middle of the recording of the podcast also. So we didn't even get the total beginning. We didn't get the introduction or none of that recorded. So I'm going to explain to you what happens. You're going to actually pick up in the conversation in the middle of the beginning of the show. It's the first topic we're discussing. We pick up on last week's topic of Hip Hop Crew. There's a quote from Nelly where he says he's the only artist from his era to get on without a cosign. So we dive into that conversation. That's where you'll pick up at in the beginning of this show. Now, with that being said, we missed the introductions of the stars of the show, which are the cigars. I'll be smoking this week the Aroma that Cuba and Denzel is smoking Rocky Patel Disciple. Now, the bulk of the conversation is about an old list that the NBA put out back in 1996 about the top 50 greatest players of all time. We think that list needs to be revised. We get into that conversation this week. I don't want to hold you any longer. I went on long enough. We appreciate you tuning in again this week. Here's this week's episode.
But I was saying Ludacris, the only person I can think of right now who I would say came out without a cosign.
Okay, and for me, I say Ludacris can't be included on that list because Ludacris was co-signed by Scarface, who was running Def Jam South at the time.
Was he now? Okay.
That was Scarface's first artist, was Ludacris.
Really? Okay.
So that's a big co-sign coming out of the South.
I am uneducated on. Like, did they have any songs together before he dropped his singles?
No, he didn't. But once again, it was the same thing. It was the equivalent of Dr. Dre coming out with Eminem, or Eminem coming out with 50 Cent. It was like, hey, this is my new artist, and he's popping.
Yeah.
So that's what it was. When Scarface took over as the president of Def Jam South, he was doing the rounds announcing, this is my new artist. First artist we're signing to Def Jam South is this guy Ludacris from Atlanta.
Okay. Well then, shoot, that makes sense. I mean, other than that, who else can you say? Trick Daddy, maybe?
Trick is one, but I don't know if Trick falls into that conversation though, because Trick was I mean, you can say little smaller name artists made it, but if we're talking like big names, you know what I'm saying? No offense to Trick.
So we're talking about artists who went
Platinum Crew. Platinum.
Well, I mean, I can't say he didn't have
consistently gold. Consistently gold or up. Let's go with that.
Okay.
Consistently gold up.
Okay. Because he had a nice little run for the South. Like before, I mean, not saying that he was the biggest in the South, but for sure during his time, the biggest of Miami, for sure.
Yeah. I don't want to sound like I'm taking a dump on Trick, because Trick deserves all the respect as far as what he was. You know what I'm saying?
But I can see that different level of how
levels. That's it. A popularity.
How many
levels of popularity.
Like Nelly, you're talking about super mainstream, super crossover. Ludacris hit mainstream, didn't necessarily crossover until he did like movies and stuff like that, but musically he was
a platinum artist though.
Yeah, top tier.
He was a platinum artist. Yeah.
So yeah.
Then you got your Eminems, your 50 Cents and stuff like that. You know, they all fall in that whole conversation of people who came in during that time frame.
Right. So we're talking about different levels.
Yeah.
But I guess thinking back, I can probably say that Nelly was probably the biggest one to come out without a cosign.
You think he was?
I gotta give him that. I gotta give him that. You know what I'm saying? Never was a huge Nelly fan, but I definitely respect respect the grind and respect getting on the way he did and really putting on for his city and then really making a mark, a stamp That is something that you know what I'm saying, I do have a lot of respect for. So I get that one to
Yeah.
Nelly.
Yeah. I mean, even if we go to a tier beneath that, like, and when I say a tier beneath that, I mean like how I said consistent gold artists. So
Hmm.
if you go with like a Beanie Siegel or something like that, even step down,
Even there,
um,
yeah.
even there, I mean, those guys still had cosigns, man.
He still
Anybody
had
that
cosign.
you can name that's in the ballpark of a Beanie Siegel that was from that 98, 99 Ford, you know what I'm saying? Well,
Yeah.
99, I say 95,
And then
99
also
Ford.
also yeah, also regionally, he had nobody from that region to even latch on to.
No,
You know what I'm
no.
saying? Anybody else who came out hot from his area was after him.
Yep.
Latched on to his way that he was putting on. Your what's your other boy name from St. Louis? Chingy, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Even him latched on to what Nelly and his crew was doing. So
Right.
everybody else who came out knew was New York or whatever, Atlanta. Even if they didn't have that direct cosign, they still had somebody to link them to that still propel them
Right.
into a mainstream view.
Right. Yeah, I thought
Yeah.
that was interesting, man. It's something I never even considered, and we just had the whole crew talk and how people got on because of their crew. And then,
Hmm.
interesting enough, that quote comes out the next week, so it fell right in hand. So I threw back to
Yeah.
it. Yeah, but
All right.
with that being said, we actually have a topic this week, everybody. Like normally, I never have show notes because we go into this show and we freestyle it. We don't really have conversations planned.
Yeah,
So
it's just
I
cigars
have
and
show
everything
notes
else,
this week.
man.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
I'll let you go ahead and kick us off with why I have show notes today.
Well, before I get into that, I do want to re-highlight the cigar. This Rocky Patel Disciple. I finally got it lit. Took me a little while to get it lit, but I finally got it lit. And I am drinking a little bit of Japanese whiskey, a little Suntory whiskey, going with it. And so far, man, first puff was smooth. I gotta highlight that real quick before we go any further. It's just to let it be known that this cigar, the first puff, was top notch. I definitely give it an A
Okay.
plus.
Cool, cool, cool. And I'm starting off enjoying this little Aroma de Cuba also, man. I gotta admit, it's started off pretty well, man. It's look like we go both going in good direction so far with our cigars. So
Yeah, man. Honestly, I think how you start is very very important to a cigar. Don't get me wrong. I have had a lot of cigars that kind of start off a little harsh. Could be my fault. Could have, what I'm saying, lit a little too harshly. But some cigars that do come with a little bit of too much pepper off rip and then kind of ease out. But I do love a cigar that starts off smooth and just maintains that throughout. So big notch to
yeah.
that. All right, but yeah, but let's go ahead and get to the topic, man. So this came from, of course, we're big sports fans, basketball, NBA fans, and I'm looking at the commercials and advertisements and all that stuff, and I'm seeing 75 years anniversary of NBA, right? And it
Right.
threw me way back into my youth. Like, man, I remember when the NBA was 50. I was, you know what I'm saying, was a pup. But I was big into basketball. I was like, man, NBA 50. And I remember during the All Star weekend, they did the top 50 players in for the 50-year anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, man, that list has to be revisited, revitalized, revamped, and everything. Like we got to look at those names, and 25 years later, how many NBA stars have come and gone, or who are in the league now making an impact? How does that list stand with the players who was on there now, and some of the players who didn't make it back then? Would you change anybody? Take those guys off? Put some guys from back then, or who was in the league when the list was named, and say, well, we'll have to reshuffle this person, or somebody who's come in new, like your LeBron James, and say, hey, this guy has to be on that list. So if you put somebody like LeBron on that top 50, somebody has to come off. So who are you taking off? Who's going on?
Okay. Now we I actually have the list in front of me. I got papers today. I went and printed this off so I could be prepared for the show.
Yeah.
Now, I want to say this. Denzel and I, we're in our late 30s at this point. So we're not gonna sit here and act like we're familiar with some of these names that come before
Hmm.
the 80s. You know what I'm saying? Like we may know names from the 70s, but we don't know them from watching them during they actually
Yeah,
play the
yeah, yeah.
game live.
We're 80s babies, hardcore 90s, early 2000 fans. You know, if
Yeah,
there's any confusion where we stand when it comes to the NBA, hardcore
right.
90s, early 2000s. That was our prime era.
Yeah, that would be the prime for us. Um, so yes, you are correct. There's gonna be well, first of all, let's start here. It's year 75. So if the NBA does what I think they'll do, they'll just name the top 75 players and not
Right.
take anybody off. But from them last 25 years, who makes the list of the next 25 added is what I believe
Yeah.
they'll do.
Because,
But
like,
for
in my
Vernon
opinion,
Cigar,
go ahead, go ahead, no, go ahead.
no, you got it.
No, I was just saying, like, because even in 25 years, I don't think you can just pick 25 new names and add to it. There's going to be more, maybe more than 25 that you might have to add. And say you got 30 great players, you're going to have to take off at least five just to get to that 75. You know?
I don't know that, man. I think that they can go with 25 over the last
Hmm.
25 years. I
You
can
think
see that
so?
scenario.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
because you got to look at some of the names that were already up there.
Hmm.
Shaq was already up there. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he was up there before he earned his keep. So,
Right.
like, you don't have to add Shaq right now. You know what I'm saying? So that's scenarios like that. So I
But you do,
think
but you do
that
got to go and add a Kobe. But does a Clyde Drexler stay on there?
yeah, yeah.
You
So
know,
so
yeah,
that's what
just to
initially
throw
where I
some
was gonna
things
go
out.
with it. For the sake of Vernon's, we're not gonna add 25. We're gonna keep it at 50. We're not gonna go top 75. For Vernon's
Okay.
right now, this conversation on the Cigars and Everything Else podcast, we're gonna go top 50. We're gonna stick to that theme. And let's go with
Hmm.
figuring out who needs to come off this list, and who needs to stay on, who earned a place to go for another 50, another
Right.
25 years, and who didn't.
And,
So
and
for
and as you
me,
mentioned, based on our era.
yes. Now, based on our era, but I'll say this about previous eras. Now, there are going to be some names on this list. I'm familiar with you. I'm familiar
Hmm.
with a few of these names on the list. And there's some ones that I'm somewhat familiar, but I didn't really watch them like that. So it's
Right.
going to kind of be names like that where I can look at them and say, maybe you should come off because I kind of remember you and I thought you was a little overhyped back then watching you. And if you have a bigger name than somebody else on this list, then those older names that really didn't have a long lasting name are going to be in trouble, in my opinion.
Right. Okay.
But we'll go ahead and dive into it. I'm gonna just go on the first page that I have here. I'm gonna just name off a couple of them: Kareem Abdul, Nate Archibald, Paul Arizin, Charles Barkley, Rick Barry, Elgin Baylor, Dave Bing, Larry Bird, Wilt Chamberlain, Bob Cousy, Dave Cohens, Billy Cunningham, Dave Bashir, Clyde Drexler, Julius Erving, Patrick Ewing, Walt Frazier, George Gervin, Hal Greer, and John Havlicek. Now, with that
Hmm.
being said, Rick Barry, you cool and all, but I actually am familiar with you enough to say that you can come off that list.
Come on
You know what
with
I'm
this.
saying? I'm familiar with you enough to say you can come off that list. Um,
Hey, I mean, his boys were some ballers though. He created some great NBA sons too. You know.
they're about as great as he was. Okay, I don't know. Somebody might be mad at that. Somebody might be mad at that. They might say his sons didn't live up to him. So that is unfair. But I'm not gonna say his sons. He was just light years ahead of his children. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right. Yeah.
I'd
Yeah.
put
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
in a similar category. You
Well,
know, but
and would you put John Barry in the NBA top 50? But could you
I
say that
wouldn't
his
have put
son
him in there when he
still
was playing. I wouldn't have put him in the
right?
top 50.
So that's what I'm saying. So I mean, like, if you say that his son's skill set was just as good as his father's, and you wouldn't put him in the top 50, so would you take the father off?
I'm
I
not
would
gonna
like
say
you
that
to
Rick
say
ain't
yeah.
the best.
No, I was.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. I would like him to agree with you. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, but and for me, I'm familiar with pretty much all these names up here. Not that familiar with Billy Cunningham. So
Same
your
with me.
name didn't stand the test of time
Hmm.
because I know your peers very well. I know Bob Cousy. I know Dave Coens. I know Hal Greer. I know these names. I don't know you
Right.
like that, Billy Cunningham. So I don't know that you really stay on this list. Before I go jump down Clyde Drexler's throat. Who is Billy Cunningham? I don't know. But
Hmm.
Billy, you're gonna stay on the list because I don't know you like that. And I am going to end up attacking Clyde, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We got on the next list Elvin Hayes, Magic Johnson, Sam Jones, Michael Jordan, Jerry Lucas. Sorry, Jerry. Karl Malone, Moses Malone, Pete Maravich, Kevin McHale, George Mikan, Earl Monroe, Hakeem Olajuwon, Shaq, Robert Parrish, Bob Pettit, Scottie Pippen, Willis Reed, Oscar Robertson, David Robinson, Bill Russell, Dolph Shays, you're in trouble, Dolph, and Bill Sharman, you're in trouble also,
In
Bill.
trouble.
John Stockton, Isaiah Thomas, Nate Thurman, Wes Unseld, Bill Walton, Jerry West, Lenny Wilkins, James Worthy. Love you, Lenny. I'm thinking about getting you off that list, though, Lenny. And sorry, Bill Walton, you 100% come off the list. I thought you was overrated when you was playing. As much as I know you are a legend to the game, I respect what you did, but I always thought you were overrated.
Oh man.
But I don't know, be upset with me. He was overrated to me. Kevin McHale, I want to bring you on off. I want to bring all you Celtics off, to be honest. Robert Parrish, I want to bring you off. Like
That was another one I was thinking when you mentioned Robert Parrish. I'm like, great overall team, but for me, I'm just speaking for me.
I want to take all of these. I don't see Larry Bird. Did I name Larry Bird?
Larry Bird, he's on there. Of course, he's on there. I think he's more towards the top of that list, if I'm
Oh
not
no, he was at
mistaken.
the top. He was at the top. So Larry and Bill
Larry
Russell are the
stayed.
Celtics. I'm willing to keep.
Yeah, they stay. They stay for sure.
The rest of you, I know why you're there. You're there because you were a part of one of the greatest teams of all time. But that don't mean that I look at you like one of the greatest 50 players of all time. But
Right.
I'll let you go
And I'm
now,
glad
B.
you, I'm glad you mentioned that because that's going to take me into something that might be controversial for a lot of people outside
Oh
of
Lord.
myself. You already know where I'm going with it, right?
Yeah, go ahead and get it off.
It's my disdain for Scottie Pippen. Of
Oh,
course, good player. I mean, I would even say he was a great player, but a top 50 player, especially at the time that this list was made. We're talking about what 95, 96, I think it was 96.
mm-hmm.
So yeah,
96.
been in the league for some years, got some championships, part of a championship squad, of course, legendary Bulls team, and was an instrumental part to that team. But especially now, 25 years later, does he stay on the list for me? I say he comes off the list. Because you're part of a great team, and in my opinion, part of what made him great was who he was playing with and the system that he was playing in. Not saying that he wasn't a very, very skilled basketball player, but to be a top, like the cream of the crop, like the top 50 in 75 years player, I don't put him there. Personally, that's my personal opinion.
Now, I'm not going to ask you to do this. This is rhetorical for
Mm-hmm.
you to answer this yourself. But so you got 25 players that you would put ahead of Scottie Pippen since the year 1996 to now.
Yes.
I would love to test you, but I'm not going to. But I would love to
Yeah, yeah,
test you.
yeah, 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 yeah. I'm not gonna say that I can give it to you all off the top right now, but I'm pretty sure if I sit down, I can give you 25 players over Scottie Pippen in 2021.
Let me ask you this. Here's a random, accurate comparison, but random. T-Mac or Pippen? Who makes the list between them two?
I'm glad you mentioned. I had this argument years ago. Years ago, we're talking about maybe 6, 7 years ago. I had this conversation, and I brought up that name. I brought up T-Mac, and I brought up Scottie Pippen, and I said, who do you think it was greater? And my opinion, T-Mac was light years better than Scottie Pippen. If you put T-Mac with Michael Jordan in 96, 92, 93, 97, T-Mac does what Scottie Pippen does and more. If you just look at the numbers, if you look at the eye test, if you look at how, you know what I'm saying, how he played, the type of player that he was. Look at how Kobe Bryant speaks about how T-Mac was as a player. You know, Kobe Bryant even says me better, taller. He can do everything I can do, and he's taller. And this is Kobe Bryant, somebody a lot of people put him in their top 5, top 3, top 2. And he speaks on T-Mac to say that T-Mac was just as great as he was and even taller, longer. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
If you ask me,
so
T-Mac is way better than Scottie Pippen.
I'm devil's advocate in this situation, right? You know what I'm saying? Because I'm not going to disagree that T-Mac may have potentially been a better player than Scottie Pippen. But here's the devil's argument, a devil's advocate argument now.
Mm-hmm.
T-Mac got to showcase, okay, look at what, there's a certain type of game that Scottie had to adapt to having in order to play alongside Michael Jordan. Because right. he was with Jordan his entire career. He came in under the NBA's sweetheart. So he had to adapt a certain game. When Jordan left, then he was going to have to make an adjustment and try to become something that he had not been his entire time in the NBA. Didn't quite make the adjustment where he could just be that solo player. Now, you look at what T-Mac was when he was under Vince Carter, when they were together.
Mm-hmm.
And you look what he became when he became his own man. Now, T-Mac could not play second fiddle. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. He had to get from up underneath him. So you make the argument he would have did more for Jordan. I don't know that his style of play would have allowed him to play for underneath a guy like Jordan and be successful. I think Pippen made some adaptations that were necessary in order to be on the team he was on. So he never really got to fully be what he possibly could have been. Let's say if he'd have came in the league and played for his own team, maybe he would have had a different, you'd have had a different outlook on the type of player he was. Maybe he would have evolved differently. Mm-hmm. T-Mac is a great offensive player, much better offensively if we're talking of scoring baskets only. If we're talking about being a facilitator, being a floor leader, we're talking about being a defender, is he? You know what I'm saying? Pippen was willing to do some blue-collar work out there. True. And when he was needed to score, he could do it. But he did a lot of blue-collar work, man. Like hitting the boards, defending the best player on the floor, coming down as a point forward. You know what I'm saying? And looking to set up offense before scoring himself. Okay. In a game where it was a lot of organization and it was come down, run a play, set this guy up, we do this and that. It wasn't all the isolation ball that it later on became. That people like T-Mac and Iverson and Kobe contributed to the league going more that direction. Okay. I mean, and I can see the differences of the time, of course, differences of different systems, but even what you said with Scottie Pippen doing the blue collar work, T-Mac didn't necessarily do all of what Scottie Pippen did because that's not what he was asked for. He was, like you said, Michael Jordan was the darling of the league. Whatever squad T-Mac went to, he was the darling of that squad. So he did what he needed to do in his position. I need you to score this basketball. And he's going to score the basketball. That's what he's going out to do, to put the ball in the hoop. And he did it efficiently at a high level. You know what I'm saying? Which, you could make the argument to say that Scottie Pippen could have been or would have been maybe, but we don't know what he may not have become
had he had to live up to his own expectations on his own team. It could have gone either way. So yeah, you can make an argument to say that he could have been, the greatest superstar ever on his own team, but then that pressure, that pressure mounts. And we've seen a lot of skilled NBA players who have had to go out on their own team and wilted under the pressure or been crushed under the pressure. Very skilled players, even like a KD. We haven't even seen what he was able to do on his own just yet. And who can say that KD is not a highly skilled NBA player on both sides of the ball?
Okay.
So yeah, we can live in hypotheticals. All I'm doing is looking at what T-Mac produced versus what Scottie Pippen produced.
Okay, so come out of hypotheticals for a second and let's look at what they produced. Who really and truly brought the most value to their teams? Because Pippen did more than just score. You know what I'm saying? He was not needed for that. So we can't base it strictly on who was a better offensive phenomenon scoring the ball. You know what I'm saying? Or else guys like John Stockton got to come off the list if that's the case. You know what I'm saying?
You're not even looking at just scoring.
Pippen on both sides of the ball was I think he might have brought more value. You know what I'm saying? To what that Chicago Bulls team needed from him. If we look at his overall stats, I think he overall might not have been as fun to watch as T-Mac, but overall he might have brought more to the table. Maybe. I'm just arguing the point. Yeah. I'm not standing on that side of the stance. I'm just throwing it out there. It can be argued.
Well, look at this. Think back to 94, 95. When Scottie had the league to himself. He had the Bulls to himself.
Yeah.
And he did great those years. He produced. He produced.
All right. I was gonna say, but let's be honest now. Don't downplay him. He did. They went to what, the semifinals?
They went to the semifinals. He produced. He produced. But playing the second for that many years, playing behind Jordan that many years, I would have to say that I would have wanted to see him produce more, given that opportunity and that stage. If this is what you were supposed to become, and this is what you could have become, had there been no Jordan, skill-wise, you had all these years to gain the skill set that you have and that you need, and then also learn from the greatest, side by side with the greatest. You had the opportunity in front of you. You couldn't even make it to the finals.
Okay. Give me an example of someone in a comparable scenario who had done that. And soon as the top guy went out, they came out and they took the team to where the team went with the top guy.
Well, I would say, that's unfair to say. That's unfair to say because nobody's done it. No, I'm not saying that nobody's done it. Kobe Bryant did it to a degree. Granted, it took him some years.
How long did it take?
Yeah, exactly. It took him some years.
Okay.
But he did it without Shaq. But it's hard to say because nobody's ever had to play second to Jordan other than Pippen.
Okay, if people couldn't do it with lesser players than a Jordan, then why would he have to do it with the greatest? You know what I'm saying? Like that. No, the second. Okay, every NBA team has always been made up of a superstar, all-star, and 2 or 3 really competent players. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's what any winning team formula has always been up until now, where they started doing the super teams. But prior to super teams, it was always superstar, all-star, 3 competent players that are great role players. Who ever went from all-star, and when the superstar left, they actually took over and took the team as far or further than when the superstar was there?
Tim Duncan.
I guarantee you can't. Tim was low key better. Tim was low key better than the. But look, Tim is better than David Robinson though. In the end, when all the careers is said and done,
he turned out he's higher on the list. And we ain't even got to Tim. Tim will go on this list. You know, he might replace David Robinson on this list for that matter. You know what I'm saying?
Ooh, I know
yes, great example.
Antonio, that would be kind of tight about that one.
I mean, we haven't got deep enough for me to really get into it. You know, the Admiral might keep his spot. You know what I'm saying? As of now, I think he's going to keep his spot. But, I mean, if it get tight enough and I got to pull somebody up out of there,
he might come down. He might come down.
I'm not going to bring Isaiah Thomas out of there. I'm not going to bring James Worthy out of there.
You can't.
I'm not going to bring John Stockton. I don't know. He might come. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. We're going to keep going through it. He ain't going to – Akeem staying. Admiral or Patrick Ewing becomes an interesting conversation.
One with a championship, one without a championship.
I know. It becomes interesting because I always kind of looked at Pat as the better center, but he didn't get that chip. And Admiral got his chip courtesy of Tim Duncan.
I was going to say that, but he didn't get his until Tim Duncan came along.
Yeah, he got his because of Tim, I
don't think that David Robinson would have gotten his chip if Tim Duncan would have never came to the team. I don't think it would have.
He needed the Twin Towers down there.
Yeah, absolutely. But so we got a lot of names that need to go on that list. You got AI who needs to go on that list. You got Kobe who needs to go on that list. You got Tim Duncan who needs to go on that list. The list goes on. Steph Curry might need to go on that list. I'm not even gonna say Mike.
Hold on. Let me pause you there. Let me pause you right there because that's what I don't want to do. For me personally, I don't want to do what they did back in '96, where Shaquille O'Neal made this list prematurely.
Okay.
Now, Shaq went on to earn his spot on the list, but Shaq did not. At the time he made this list, shouldn't have been on this list.
He didn't deserve to be on that list. Yeah.
I feel the same way about Steph Curry. Steph Curry will one day belong on this list, but I don't want to do it until I see the second half of his career.
Man, I got to stop you there. Tell me, go a little further. Tell me why.
Yeah. Let me keep going. Let me keep going.
Why?
For the same reason I said Shaq didn't belong up there. That's it. Steph Curry.
They're not in the same class at this time.
Hold on. Let me go. Steph has obviously done enough where he's going to belong on this list, but I just want to see it play out. I don't want any players that are active in the league outside of LeBron James that have not retired. I don't want to put them on the list. That's my stance. Do I believe he will be up there? I believe he's done enough to earn his spot up there already. Am I going to give it to him? Not until you retire. Only LeBron is the only player in the league that has not retired that I will put on this list. Now, D-Wade is gone. Put him on the list. I think D-Wade is probably the third greatest shooting guard of all time. Put him on the list now. But if he was still active, I'd hold off on it. So don't get me wrong. That was not a shot at Steph. Steph has done enough. He's going to be on this list. But let's watch his career play out and get there. He got a whole entire second half of his career. He's slowing down a little bit. But even the work he did up to this point, I think he deserves it. But I'm just not doing it because I think only LeBron is the only person who deserves that accolade.
I'm gonna let you finish.
Go ahead, I'm done. Go ahead, Stephen.
Okay. Well, see, because here's where I have to disagree with you on that a little bit, to some degree, right? Because in my opinion, if Steph Curry retired today, he's done enough.
Then I put him on.
To me, it's not unfair to put him on that list, especially when you had Scottie Pippen, who had 3 championships at the time they put him on the list. Steph Curry has what? How many championships Steph Curry has? He has 3, right? He needs to be on the list. At the time in 1996, Shaq had 4 years in the league. Dominant as he was, he had no championships. He had made it to the finals, but he didn't produce anything. So yeah, in my opinion, even back then, as young as we were back then, seeing Shaq being put on that list, I highly disagree with him being on that list. You know, because he hadn't done anything enough. Yeah, he was a hot player, a dominant player, but at the point of saying at 50 years, yeah, you go on this list, now we're at 25 years, then you put Steph Curry just because he's an active player, and you still need to see his career pan out, I think there's nothing he can do to tarnish his reputation or tarnish his legacy in the league. At the time where Shaq was put on the list, there was a whole lot that could have gone wrong that would have pushed him off the list. Now, he lived up to his expectation, but Steph, in my opinion, even for another 5, 10, 10 years, he can be trash for the rest of his career. But he's done enough, in my opinion, just as like Allen Iverson on the tail end of his career, you know, even when at his highest point, him coming down, nothing can take his reputation off for what he's done for the league and in the league. So Steph Curry doesn't have to do anything else in his career, even as an active player, that's going to knock him off the list if you ask me. He's done enough already. Shaq at that point hadn't done anything.
See, but that's the thing about it though. For me, I feel the same way about that list with a lot of the idea of any active players being on. That's why I say I don't agree with putting active players on it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like for me, I'm only doing it with LeBron because it's so hard. LeBron is one of the potentially top 3 players of all time. It's like I have to concede to him. You know what I'm saying? But the rest of these guys, you know, like you say, I don't think Steph can do much to tarnish his career if he was garbage for the rest of it. Tarnish his legacy, but so bad. But at the same time,
Kevin Durant's different.
Well, look at this way. This is why I say I want to watch his career play out, because even with Iverson, you talk about Iverson going on the list automatically, and my reverence for Iverson is as high as it can be, but he made the list, but he did a lot to tarnish his too. You know what I'm saying? His placement on the list. His placement on the list is not where it could have been. Like I gotta put him he's squeaking into the list for me. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I love him to death, but he squeaks into the list. So that's why I say I don't want to put Steph up there, because Steph I don't know where I can rate him on it. So I want to see it play out to see if he squeaks on the list or if he's going lower.
Even
he's probably the greatest shooter of all time, but do I put Steph in the top 25 or do he make the bottom 25? I got to see it play out. He's going to make it, but I need to see it play out to see where. Iverson goes in the bottom 25, maybe 40 to 50 for me. Like, you know what I'm saying?
This is where I'll give you your point again. Steph Curry has done what AI has not done. But Steph Curry has done what AI has done. AI changed the culture of basketball. Steph Curry changed the culture of basketball. AI doesn't have the championships. Steph Curry has the championships.
Yeah.
He has the records. He has this, the accolades that AI doesn't have. So AI, he messed up his placement on the list. But Steph Curry, in my opinion, cannot mess up his placement. Maybe a little bit, to a lesser
So where's
degree.
his placement? Where's his placement then? Since you sound like you confident and ready to put him in a spot, where do you put him at? Because my stance is I'm not confident where he goes, so I don't put him there yet until I figure out where he belongs. I know where LeBron goes, so I put him there. Nobody active, I know where they go. I got a couple I think will go, but I don't know where. So
I'm gonna confidently say 20 to 25. Confidently. Not saying he doesn't move up, not saying he doesn't move down. In my opinion, I would say he's more likely to move up than to move down. But I would put him in the 20 to 25.
Okay, 20 to 25 with the possibility he can come down lower on the list.
Possibly. But I would say he'll be more likely to be pushed up closer to number 1.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Up.
Yeah. More likely to move closer to 1 than 50.
I don't know where I want to put him yet. Like, if you ask me today, maybe I might have him around 30. You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
Okay.
But I don't know. That's the problem. I don't know where I want to sit him at. I'm still unsettled on that because I'm just torn with Steph, man. That's my stance on it. He's an active player. I think he's done enough to be on it. I think he will end on it. But I need to know. I need to see more of how it play out to finalize where I think he belongs.
I can respect.
You know what I'm saying? So we're gonna have to agree to disagree on that because I just don't know where he belongs. Yeah, I just don't know where I want to get him, man. I want to get him somewhere.
So like saying that top 50 list is a tug of war right now. Who's getting in there? Who's not?
So who else comes off other than Pip for you? And who add? Okay, so we agree. Tim Duncan will go to that list. Kobe Bryant obviously is gonna go to that list. Do you agree with Dwayne Wade going to that list? I believe.
Yeah. I can agree with Dwayne Wade being on that list.
Yeah, you got to, man. It's Jordan, Kobe, then him. You know what I'm saying? At that position. So I give him that. Would a KG make that list for you? I think KG should kind of go up there, but I think KG goes up there. Yeah,
he's gonna be knocking at the door. Not saying that he won't make it in, but when it comes down to drawing out that list and having those names, he's gonna be inching in. He's gonna be that 48, 49, 50. Great player, but we have a lot of players. There's a lot of players to get to.
I would bring Karl Malone out and put KG in before I let you not put KG on the list. And you know me, I'd never brag on KG. We ain't never had no conversation where you heard me be like KG. Yeah, but his career's over.
When it comes to Karl Malone versus KG, yeah, get Karl Malone off that list, man. Get him and his wristbands off the list.
Okay, so who else we got, man? That's retired and should be on that list from the last 25 years.
I mean, you might can argue Ray Allen. Arguably.
Now, if you just reluctantly put KG in the bottom two, how do you add, or how do you argue to me that Ray Allen goes up there quicker than you added a KG? Because if anything, I add if KG goes, let's say KG goes 40, I got to put Ray Allen at 42. Like, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. For me,
and that's why I mentioned Ray Allen, because if you say KG and Ray Allen, and say they're both at 51, and you're looking at who's going to be 50-51, I think you can make a case for either one. You know,
equally.
Both got championships. Ray Allen got multiple championships. Granted, in his other one, he was more of a role player, but he played his role. And if you look at his
chips as role players,
not as a big three. When he was part of the big three, he was more so of a prime
he was
player.
Third option. He was third
option, but of the three, like, you're a part of a big three. Being the third option of a big three.
Who was the big three? Who was the big three?
Talking about Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, and Kevin Garnett.
And who? Kevin Garnett. and Ray Allen was who on that in that big three? The third option.
Third.
Who was 1 and 2?
Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett. You flip flop either one.
Either one. Ugh, Paul Pierce. I can't get Paul Pierce on the list. Paul ain't making my list, brother.
I'm not a Paul Pierce fan. I completely hated his game. You know, especially being a Pistons fan. We went up against Celtics for you know what I'm saying, for years with Paul Pierce being in there, and I hated every time he touched the ball. But I do recognize the fact that, you know what I'm saying, he was a huge part in his team getting to where they got to. You know, me personally, I would have to put Kevin Garnett above Paul Pierce, but
yeah,
you know what I'm saying, I recognize the fact that they both needed each other.
They needed each other. But it was Paul Pierce's team.
Even to say this with Ray Allen, you know, him understanding what his role was, just like you mentioned about Scottie Pippen. He didn't have to be number one, number two to really have a huge impact, but that boy had some game. You can't take that from him.
No, not at all. He was one of the greatest shooters of all time. Probably replaced top 5. You know what I'm saying? You know, definitely at the time he was in the league, he was top 2. Him and Reggie Miller, and then Steph come in and took over that spot from both of them guys. But
and also, I think a lot of times his complete skill set gets overlooked by how great of a shooter he was. Look at early on footage. Think back to when he first came in the league with Milwaukee. He was doing more than shooting.
Think about the wars him and Iverson had in the playoffs.
Come on now.
Yeah, yeah.
Talk about that.
He was
Like,
true.
if you're talking about players who can attack the basket in 96, 97, he was up there with Kobe Bryant, probably better than Kobe Bryant. You know what I'm saying? He was doing what T Mac was doing when T Mac came into the league. He was one of those guys, Grant Hill, Ray Allen. I mean, come on now. So it was just
Yeah.
that his shooting was so great that his shooting overshadowed a lot of the other great things that he was able to do on the court.
But you know that his shooting is what allowed him to fall into a role player position in
Right,
his latter
right,
years of his career. Yeah, he
right.
had something to fall back on where he could always be there. And without a doubt, all the chips, you know how we talked about well, I wouldn't even say that, but he earned his chips. Like literally,
Hmm.
he earned his chips.
Yeah,
Those teams wouldn't have got rings without him. You know what I'm saying?
absolutely.
LeBron owes Ray Allen a card every year for his chips. You know what I'm saying? And so does Dwayne.
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying? So I don't want to deny that, but a lot of this is us going off feeling. You know what I'm saying? Because we don't have it
Yeah,
written out. So this is feeling over facts a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Because
yeah.
factually, maybe Ray
We're not
Allen
looking.
goes lower. Yeah,
No,
maybe he goes lower factually.
maybe he doesn't make the list at all. But
Maybe.
like
Yeah.
you said, we're going off of pure feeling, thoughts, ideas that we're just throwing out right now.
Yeah.
And in that same vein, I want to throw another name at you. That's a name that I was curious about. You mentioned him earlier when you mentioned T Mac. Does Vince
Mm-hmm.
Carter make that list? A player like Vince Carter,
Such a dynamic player, man.
long
Uh,
career.
if I, Vince, I want to put Vince on the list just for sentimental reasons. Like Vince, I put
Mhm.
makes it. Vince makes it. I can't put one on without the other going on, man. And so maybe
Say that one more time. Say that one more time.
if
I lost you a little bit on the line.
I said if T Mac makes it, then Vince makes it. I can't put one up there without the other. Those are the same type player to me. You know what I'm saying? Like
Okay. And I would say
I
this. I mean, Vince Carter more of an iconic player than T Mac. Like
yeah.
if you put T Mac and Vince Carter on the same billet and you took it across seas to other countries, which name stands out more? Vince Carter's name stands out a whole lot more than T Mac.
Vince Carter is what you described Ray Allen to be, except
Hmm.
Vince's dunking overshadowed everything else he brought to the game. But
Yeah.
Vince did everything. You know what I'm saying? How I said, go back to the Iverson and Ray Allen wars. Go back to the Carter and Iverson wars. You know what I'm saying? In the
Hmm.
playoffs, like,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
look at how Vince was getting down. Like, I man, I don't have it in my heart to not put Vince Carter on the list, but I don't know that Vince belongs on the list. You know what I'm saying? Maybe that hurts me to say it, but I
Oh man,
want to put him up there.
it hurt to
I,
hear you say that.
I want to put him up there bad. I'm looking through now. Who would I pull off this list that I'm familiar with enough to put Vince up there for? I got an interesting one for you. What's your take on this? Who goes on the list? This
All
might
right.
not even be an argument at all. You might laugh at me and be like, "I can't believe you asked me this," but
Okay, let's hear it. Let's hear
it
it.
kind of sound like a good argument to me. Vince Carter or Sir Charles?
Oh man. Oh man.
Okay,
That is
that one was as good as I thought it was. Then that one's hard,
that
right?
is that is an argument because now for one you're talking about two different eras, and then you're talking about two different eras that I'm attached to. You're talking about the
Yes.
late '80s, early '90s, and then you're talking about the 2000s, man. Like, all right. So
You know how
yeah.
great both of these guys was
They
personally,
were,
but their careers
yeah,
went to roughly around the same place.
man. Because you got two players who really meant something to the league, but in two different ways. That's the
Yeah,
problem I'm having. Is Charles
yeah.
Barkley meant something to the league totally separate from what Vince Carter meant to the league. You're talking about cultural icon in Vince Carter, somebody who brought the dunk contest back. Somebody I remember being in high school the year after he did the reverse whip arm in the net jump. Like it was Olympics jumping over. I mean, come on now.
You watch Vince all the way from as a Tar Heel go crazy, like you said, high school to Tar Heel to a Raptor and all the way to being a damn Hawk now. You know what I'm saying? So like what
longevity? But at the same time, longevity speaks volumes too.
See, we watched Charles get to become a legend in his time out the league. Yeah. So like it makes it where it's almost impossible to even say his name now. But career for career, I can put him against Vince. But it seems like I can't because Charles is a legend. But
you got to go back to
let Vince get out the league, and Vince will be legendary too at some point.
Yeah, his Charles Barkley's Philly years, I remember a little bit of. I became a bigger Charles Barkley fan, of course, in Phoenix, but his game had evolved a little bit. But what young viewers or young NBA fans might not know about Charles Barkley is how dominant he was. You know what I'm saying? He was Shaq, but in a more compact frame. You know what I'm saying? Doing what Shaq was doing as a 76er. You know, he was feared in the post. You saw him coming down on breaks, and he was get out his way type of player, you know, and he can get the job done. So you got so if I had a choice to put one on the list versus the other on the list, take one off and put one on, man, you can't do that to me. You can't do that to me.
What you got? What you got?
I'm going to say Charles stays on the list over Vince Carter. I would say Charles Barkley, but I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I gotta apologize to myself.
Well. All right, man. I got you. I can't argue with it, man. I can't argue with it. That one was tough. I messed with you, but that was a hard one.
Yeah, man. I like I said, I gotta apologize to myself on that.
So, okay. There was did you put Paul Pierce on that?
No.
He doesn't make it. Okay.
There's look, I respect that there's some who would put him on the list, but for my personal top 50, no.
What Pistons make the list?
Ooh, what Pistons make the list? Man.
Yeah. It's from 96 home to now.
Let's not do that.
From what was that? Two rings or 3 rings y'all got along the way?
Well, we got 2 in as the first Bad Boys, and we got 1 as the second Bad Boys. But then also, let's not forget how many times we made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. We made it to the finals twice, won as Bad Boys 2, and then we had 5, 6 Eastern Conference Finals in a row. Unfortunately, man, it would be tough to put any one of those guys on the top 50 list. You know, I argued with my brothers and my father about a year ago, and we argued over our top 10 Pistons players. You know what I'm saying? But as top 50, it's tough. It's tough. I mean, to try to be unbiased and say, even though as great as I felt like those players were because of what they did for me and the city I represent, I don't put anybody else other than Isaiah Thomas on that list. I mean, just out of respect for other players and trying to be non-biased. And because I understand that, you know, the same thing we said with the Ray Allen argument, that okay, he was third option. Where does he fit on that list? Is he lower because he was the third option of the big 3? You know, then he goes to Miami. He's not you know, a prominent option, but he played a huge role. All those Pistons players, even with Bad Boys 2, they all, them together is what made them a championship team. Them separately is not what made them great. Even though they were all great individuals, but what made them premier players was how they played together. Like when they made the All-Star game, it was 4 or 5 who made the All-Star team, and you could arguably have made a case to say all 5 starters should have made the All-Star game. they did their thing. But to be top 50, it takes a lot more than what they did as a collective individually to make the list. Now, if you put
Okay.
top 50 NBA rosters, they definitely make a top 50 NBA roster. You have the Bill Laimbeer and Dumars and Vinnie Johnson and Isaiah Thomas. That team has to make a top 50 roster. You say
Right.
your Billups, your Tayshaun Prince, Britt Hamilton, Bill Wallace, Rasheed Wallace. That team has to make a top 50 roster. So that's my position on that.
Does Steve Nash or Jason Kidd make the list?
Ooh, you throwing some names I didn't even consider when we're coming up with the topics.
Great point guards, man, of their eras.
Yes.
Do
I mean,
they
like,
do they
I
make the
agree.
list? We need some ones. So do they make it?
And when we're looking at ones, man, like, because Iverson was a one, but he was really a two. But he was a one.
Yeah.
Man, you got a lot of great ones. Man, there's gonna be a whole lot of. There's gonna be a jam up at the door at 50. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, pretty much. They're gonna all be trying to squeeze through it to number 50.
And I'm gonna have to say, I don't know. You got to look at John. Okay, look. Okay, here we go. John Stockton, Jason Kidd, Steve Nash, John Stockton. If you have John Stockton on that list, does Steve Nash not compete with John Stockton? Does Jason Kidd not compete with John Stockton's spot?
Yeah, yeah. They're all interchangeable to me.
So if you ask me this, if we put in this kind of scenario, we're all in the club. We got 50 players inside the club. We got 150 players outside the club. I'm at the door. Jason Kidd and Steve Nash walk up and say, let me in. I'm gonna go and say, hey John, I need to see you real quick. We got to meet up at the door. We're about to talk about this. Who gets in the club? Who has to leave the club?
So would you scratch John for one of them two? I mean, if you did, I mean, you wouldn't be, the list wouldn't be hurt. You know what I'm saying?
What? But I just might. No matter of fact, I will. Only
one gets the spot. So who is the one?
I'm gonna throw Jason Kidd in there.
Okay.
Steve Nash, great player, dynamic player, did his thing. John Stockton the same. Set the records, all of those, you know what I'm saying? Made it to the finals, battles with the Bulls, all of those great things.
All right.
But if you ask me who was the one player that had more of a billet of himself, it would be Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd would have been, of those three names, and you said which one's the draw? Who's going to bring a crowd? Who are people coming into the stands to see play? I'm going to say they're going to come to see Jason Kidd play before they come to see Steve Nash play, or come to see John Stockton play.
And Jason had more of the records between those two. You know what I'm saying? As far as assists and 3-point shooting also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so.
I mean, granted, Steve Nash had NBA, not finals, but MVP.
Yeah.
I don't think Jason Kidd had any MVPs, did he?
Yeah, he had an MVP.
He had an MVP? Okay, so he had an MVP. He had co-rookie of the year with Grant Hill.
Right. Forgot about that. That's true.
He made it to the finals.
He had an illustrious career, man.
So, based on those things, I would say Jason Kidd might get in there. John Stockton, hey, you got to pack your things. You got to go.
Okay. I got two names for you. Did we, okay, so David Robinson got to stay, right?
We talked about that.
Matter of fact, let's just go Kevin McHale. Let's just go Kevin McHale.
Okay.
Kevin McHale, does he? Hold on. Yeah, Kevin McHale. I'm gonna keep Bill Walton over Kevin McHale. I was torn between those two. I'm gonna keep Bill Walton over Kevin McHale.
Okay.
But Kevin McHale, Dirk Nowitzki, or Carmelo Anthony?
Oh man. Okay. See, now I don't want to be disrespectful to Kevin McHale because I know
he ain't getting all his credit on the chips from getting chips off Bird to me. Like,
but I would say this: I know some older heads who would swear by Kevin McHale. I know some older heads, and me being, you know what I'm saying, where I am, a little bit further from the youth, I have some youth who will argue some guys from my era who would say, nah, man, that guy was nothing. I'm like, but did you see him play? I saw a little bit of Kevin McHale's game. I saw a little bit of his play, but it's towards the latter end of his career, of course.
Yeah, ladder. I'm judging him off the ladder also. But Kevin McHale and Lambeer is the same dude to me. Like.
But I would say, oh man, you gotta put Dirk in there. You gotta put Dirk in there over Carmelo, over Kevin McHale. Give me Dirk. Dirk, you coming in?
Okay. I'm mad at
that. And I'll say this. Let me expound on that real quick. If I got a little bit of time to expound on this as far as Dirk, because I argued Dirk a little while ago. And if you ask me, which big man changed the way big men play, or how big men are utilized in the league for like how they play now, I would have to say he's the father of how big men play now. You know, you wouldn't have Joel Embiid on the outside, you know what I'm saying, playing all the way away from the basket if you didn't have a Dirk. He made you fear a big man beyond the arc.
Stepping out. Yeah.
He made you fear, like back in the 90s, 80s, you see Patrick Ewing sitting up there on top of the key, you ain't worried.
Right.
You ain't worried.
He's setting the screen. That's it.
You know what I'm saying? You're not thinking of an offensive threat that far away from the basket for a big man until Dirk comes along. Now you have to think how we're spreading the floor defensively, how we're, you know what I'm saying, what zone are we going to run defensively? Because we have this big man who's 7 foot, 7 outside the 3-point line, bombing them. You know what I'm saying? Taking the ball, putting the ball on the floor, dribbling it, fade away. Dirk, he changed the game in that aspect. So I got to give Dirk his props for that and throw him in the top 50 over Kevin McHale. And over Carmelo Anthony.
Does Carmelo get in at all?
Unfortunately, I'm probably going to say no. I mean,
so he don't get the Iverson treatment.
He
had more longevity at the highest level than Iverson.
He did, but his impact.
Did he peak as high as Iverson? I don't think he peaked as high as Iverson, but his longevity at the elite level lasted longer.
Yeah. I agree with that. But to say like he had a huge Iverson punched his way into the top 50. You know, if you put Carmelo in the top 50, I think he grazes his way into the top 50. Iverson made a case to say I'm undeniably in the top 50. Carmelo says I give you a case for top 50.
Yeah. I can't put Carmelo in. If we just struggle to figure out T-Mac and Carter, I can't put Carmelo in over either one of those guys. Both of those names go in before him.
Yeah.
7 days a week for me.
So man, we got it's that list. Like I said, it has to be revitalized, revamped. Even the 70, even if you extend it to 75, I still say you have a tough time finding the 25 who's going to go in there versus the 25. You know what I'm saying? Or who's already in there, who's going to come in and who's going to come out. Even if you extend it to 75. We have a lot of names. We just threw a bunch out there, you know.
Throw me one more on top of your head. Who you got?
Okay.
Somebody we missed. I feel like we missed somebody big. Another big name we missed.
Well, see, you know what? I mean, like, I don't even want to go that route with big names because I think even back then you had players who were good, who made top 50.
No, I'm talking
And
about
then you
since
have
from
some names.
'96 to now.
Yeah. I'm going to give you 96 to now.
Oh,
Or
okay.
even a little bit before then, of names who probably could have been in there based on their skill set and how they impacted the league for several years. Maybe their career didn't pan out to the way that it should have been. And then if you line them up against some of the names who's in there, some of the names you said who probably could come off because they're unrecognizable to you at this point, and to myself at this point, Grant Hill, Penny Hardaway, guys like that. Like, were their skill sets strong enough to put them in the top 50 over some of the guys who are in the top 50? I mean, granted, Grant Hill didn't have the career that he should have had for 15 years, even though he did stay in the league for a good amount of years. But how
Yeah.
productive was he over 7 years? Which for some, that's a lot to say. To come in the league and win
Yeah.
in '95, and then maybe he might have tailed out around 2001, 2002, and then
Yeah.
slowly built himself back to be a solid player over the next another 6, 7 years. To have a 7, 8 year span to where you're balling out of control, like you're really killing it. You're doing what we talked about with Ray Allen and so and guys like that. Grant Hill is somebody I would say could argue a spot for the top 50 based on his most active years.
Okay. So I just thought about something. Let's actually do a count on the names that we just named off that we felt confident can go on the list. We had LeBron. I'm gonna go ahead and add
Mm-hmm.
Steph to it because you said Steph. We had
Okay.
you added Dirk. We added
Mm-hmm.
Tim Duncan. We added Jason
Kobe.
Kidd. Hold on. Okay, I think I messed up on my fingers here. We got LeBron, Steph, Tim Duncan, Dirk, Kobe. We got D Wade. We got KG. We said Ray Allen was a possibility also. We said who was one of the other possibles? Forget it. Vince and T Mac.
T-Mac.
We up to 10. Okay, who else did we say?
Mm-hmm.
We can go possibles now because I don't think we're gonna get to 20. Al Iverson, now it's 11.
Mm-hmm.
Who did I
You
miss?
said
Who
Steve
did I
Nash?
miss?
Steve Nash was a possible.
Who?
Steve
Who?
Nash?
Steve
Steve
Nash was a
Nash.
possible. That's 12.
Dirk?
I named Dirk already.
Okay.
Um, we only at 12.
That's what I'm looking at the list though. That's just coming off the top of the head.
But
We're
this
not
is
looking. We're not
only
even
from
looking at the
people.
list.
This is only people that would have made the list between 2000 and between '96 to now though. You know what I'm saying? We only really adding
Yeah.
12 more names.
But
That we feel
okay,
that we feel confident enough could be on the list for real. Like, you know what I'm saying?
but that's coming off the head of who we're confident about. Now
Yeah.
we're not digging through rosters to say, okay, what about this guy? What about that guy? Because I think we could do
I'm
that
not
before the
saying I don't want
game.
to force it. I don't want to force it. I just want to say,
Even with the Carmelo, we didn't throw him in there, but there's a lot of people who make the case that say that he needs to go in there. Like you got
there's an argument.
Carmelo versus a Patrick Ewing. Does Patrick Ewing come off for another New York baller? Some people would
I
say, yeah,
can't do
throw
that.
Carmelo in there and take Patrick Ewing off.
I can't do that.
I can't do it
Patrick was
personally.
dominant. Patrick was dominant, man. Carmelo was not. I don't know. I can't see it, man. He just won't. He won't that top notch consistently as Pat was, man. It's hard for me to do it, man. Pat couldn't get a chip, but that don't mean Pat won't always putting up a good team. You know what I'm saying? Like as long as he was in the
For
league,
sure,
man,
for sure.
he led a good team. Like, yeah, man. That's 12 that we felt confident in from this new era, though. From the most, last 25 years in the league.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I'm trying to think. I feel like there's
I think
somebody
yeah.
else that probably would
There's
deserve to go up there, man.
there's a lot more, and even after this episode, concludes that we'll probably sit back and say, man, this guy, what about that guy? And other people listening will probably say, hey, man, y'all forgot about this guy, that guy. I don't even want to pull up any names right now. I just want to say it right off the top of my head. But I'm pretty sure there's a whole lot of names we're missing out on, people who's even won chips over the last few years that we're not even considering. Some people argue Paul Pierce needs to be in there. Was Dennis Rodman in there? Does he deserve a spot?
Rodman is an interesting. That's interesting to say that, because it's hard for you to be the greatest of a category and me not say you weren't one of the best to ever play the game.
Right.
That's an argument.
So does Dennis Rodman not make it in there?
Yeah, put Rodman in there. Put him in there. I don't mind him being in there, because you can't say he was the greatest of one of the 5 categories of basketball and him not be one of the greatest to ever play the game.
And he got the hardware to back it up, and was a very instrumental piece of each one of those championships
with multiple teams. A valuable point to each one of those. Always defended the biggest, best player on the team. Like, nah, man, he go up there. He go up there.
Yeah,
without a doubt. Give Rodman his flowers with his weird self. He gets it.
All right, so we got some names. You know what I'm saying? Granted, coming off the top. And if you ask me, I think that is something that needs to be looked at and warranted, as far as like, hey, if we got 50, we got 13, 14 other names, potentially more. Do we keep that same 50? We extend them to 75.
Well, we just named 13. I'm sure 13 of these names could come off out of these 50.
Yeah. So let me know where you at with your cigar.
Before I go into that, I do want to say this. I really truly believe the NBA is just going to do a top 75. So
they probably will. Yeah.
It's a good chance that people like a Carmelo will slide in there, or some of those other names that we talked about, just because we only could come up with 13 that really probably deserve a spot. I'm sure they can find 12 more of those possibles in the mix. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Oh, easily. Because if you think about the same thing they did with a Shaq, they're gonna throw Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's gonna be thrown in there. Klay Thompson might be thrown in there. James Harden might be thrown in there. You got guys who are active, like, trying to stay away from the active players, like you spoke about earlier. But the NBA is gonna consider that, because they are NBA veterans who have been around for, almost 10 years, if not more, and have produced, carry their brand and the league far as their impact now. Just as you had Patrick Ewing still in the league on the list, Dave Robinson still in the league on the list, right. Shaq still in the league on the list, Charles Barkley still in the league on the list, Hakeem still in the league active on the list. So they're going to add those players who are active and throw them on the list.
Yeah. Yeah, if they go top 75 and added a couple of them, I get it. You know what I'm saying? It ain't my preference, but I get it, because I did it already. But going back to the cigar, man, it's been consistently pretty smooth, man. Not a big roller coaster, but this is a good cigar for this environment. Kind of sitting around talking and not having a lot of distractions in a cigar.
Right.
It's kind of taking you on a ride. You know what I'm saying? So it's been real mellow. I enjoyed it.
And the reason I brought that question up too, as we got done with this conversation, is because I kind of regret that we got into such a heavy combo for me. Something that I get hot about. You know what I'm saying? Talking basketball. It's like, man, I get into it, right? And I'm already to my second third, almost to the end of my second third of my Patel disciple, and instead of paying attention to the transitions and to all the notes and stuff like that, I didn't get to really pay attention to it. So I'm kind of mad with myself about that. The fact that I didn't even get a chance to pay attention where I'm at. So this is how far I am with the smoke. We're about an hour and 20 in, and definitely got a whole another third to go. But I don't think this is one of those cigars that you want to have a distracted conversation. It's one of those cigars you probably got to sit with a little bit to really understand the complexities of it. Man, I'm gonna have to go back and revisit this. But I will say this: that it was not a cigar that threw me off. You know, so if you do want to grab a cigar, that is gonna be something that's gonna, you know, tie into your environment, tie into your whatever it is that you're doing. This is definitely a cigar that's not gonna shake you up too much and, you know, throw you off, because I was still able to engage in our little debate here and keep rocking with my cigar. Like, I definitely did notice a good thick smoke with it, and very smooth through and through from the first light to where I'm at now.
Right. Hey man, well, we're gonna hold off on giving a rating for it then, because I don't want to be unfair to that. That's a new cigar, and it's beautiful. So I don't want to rate that one. I'm not gonna rate mine either, because you know we were kind of in the midst of going back and forth. And normally Denzel and I, we tend to we really cut from the same cloth with a lot of our points of views and stuff like that. So it's interesting to hear us kind of have viewpoints on some of this. So this was an interesting conversation. And we both probably weren't fully focused on it. So this cigar maybe is a little more complex than I gave it credit for, but I didn't pick up on anything jumping out at me while smoking during the conversation. So with that being said,
yeah, man, same.
Did you have any closing words for us today?
Oh man, shoot, I'm just kind of excited to get back into to Rocky Patel for one. Got to get back on my hunt as far as my top 5 cigars. Got to have. Like I said, we're gonna hold off on rating this one. Not gonna throw it into a top 5 just yet. But I will say that, hey, if you grab a Rocky, you're looking for a Rocky, this is a great Rocky to pick up.
Most definitely. All right. Well, we appreciate you guys for tuning in to another episode of Cigars and Everything Else podcast. We'll get with you next week.